Hello everybody and welcome back to Gaming on Caffeine. My name is Isaac and we are back for part 2 of my mod spotlight on the Fusion Warfare mod by Team Monumental for Minecraft 1.7.10. In part 1 we covered all of the power generation and some of the machines involved within this mod, and today in part 2 we're going to cover more of the warfare side of the Fusion Warfare mod. We're going to be looking at the missiles, the armor, the tools, and some of the machines that kind of have to do more with warfare than they do with things like ore processing. If you missed part 1, I'll put a link in on the screen. It'll probably be in the top left hand corner, and there'll also a link in the description for those watching on mobile who don't have the annotations. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in for the warfare side of Fusion Warfare. So the first tier of armor and weaponry within the Fusion Warfare mod is steel. Steel are all of these great tools and this great armor over here, and basically steel is the same as iron but with double the durability. So for example, if we were to go ahead and look at this iron sword over here, the iron sword has a sharpness value of 6 and a durability of 250. And if we were to go ahead and look at the Fusion Warfare Steel Sword, it again has sharpness 6, but has a durability of 500. The same is true for the armor. If we look at the armor here, it has protection 6, durability 480. If we go and look at an iron chest plate, it has protection 6, durability 240, and it's the same throughout all of these here. The pickaxes are just as fast, but have twice the durability, and it's very much so worth it considering that steel, all it takes to make steel within this mod is you infuse 1 iron with 1 piece of coal. So basically you're adding 1 piece of coal for every piece of iron you use making these tools, and it doubles the durability, which is pretty cool if you ask me. Now the second tier, which looks like there are 2 more tiers, is the infused steel, and the infused steel can either be red or it can be blue. And this brings me nicely into the team side, I guess, of Fusion Warfare, because this mod was made with the idea that you're going to play this game in teams. You're going to play it like as its own mod in teams, with 1 team being Team Blue, 1 team being Team Red. You can't have more than 2 teams, I believe, but it was made with this idea that it'd kind of be 1v1 and 2 different teams, and the different colored armors allow you to kind of easily differentiate who's on your team and who's not. So if we look here, the infused steel armor is exactly the same as diamond, very much so like the iron is the same as steel, but again with double the durability. So if we look at a diamond sword, it has a sharpness of 7 and a durability of 1561. If we were to go ahead and look at the equivalent version here, it has a durability of 2000 and a sharpness of 7, and again with the chest plate, protection 8, durability 1056. If we go over here, you see we have protection 8, and durability is half of that, it's 528. So it's kind of just like, again, the same, but double the durability. Again, very much so worth it, very much cool armor. And basically all you have to do, by the way, to transfer this from one color to another is simply craft it. There's no dyeing involved. You can just change this color very easily, I guess, if you really easily want to switch teams, I guess. And then the final tool in this mod is this little guy over here, which is called the Red Fusion Matter Deconstructor. And there's also, again, a blue version, which can just be crafted like so. And this serves as just a multi-tool. It does pretty much everything. If I was to fly over here and quickly jump into survival mode, and also we need power, so I'll take this one, which I powered up earlier. It basically acts as a multi-tool. It acts as a shovel, it acts as an axe, we can break all this. If we go far enough down, it does act, and we're out of power. If we go far enough down, it does act as a pickaxe as well. So it's basically just a multi-tool, and if we hover over it here, you'll see it has a sharpness of 9, making it the strongest weapon as well for physical melee damage. And that's basically, this is just a multi-tool that you can use. Now, getting a little bit further into the team system, if you were to go ahead and press G by default, and you can always go into options control and see the control for the team GUI, if it's been changed by the person who put your pack together. But if you press G, it brings up the teams menu. So to start with here, I'm just going to go ahead and delete these 2 teams. And basically, if you want to add teams to your game, the person who does it has to be an op, so you have to be either on a server or somebody who has cheats enabled on a single player world. And you can go ahead and start typing in a team name, so I could say team 1. For some reason, you cannot have spaces in your name. If I type in team space 1, it just comes up as team. You can't have, like, and I try and type in team space 2 now, it'll say it's taken, but you can't have team 2 like that. So you can add 2 teams, you can kind of navigate like this, and then if you want to add somebody to the team, for example, if I want to add myself, Gaming on Caffeine, I could go ahead and add that to team 1, and then if we went over to team 2, I could add, I don't know, Bob. And now whenever Bob joins the server, he will be under the team. And this is useful because a bunch of the items and machines within this mod, you can kind of protect and can only affect or be used by your team. For example, if we were to go ahead and take a look at this guy over here, the missile launcher, which is of course used to launch missiles, If we were to go ahead and put this down while we're not in a team, it will go ahead and say you are not in a team, no security will be added. However, if you are in a team when you put it down, it will lock it to only people on your team. So only anybody on your team will be able to use this missile launcher, and then only those people will be able to launch missiles. This is really useful for things like this as well. The aura turret, which is another really useful mod. Again, it runs on the power that we showed last episode, and I'll kind of use that to power it here. If we go ahead and grab ourselves a basic network controller, throw that down like that, and then grab ourselves some cables and kind of hook this guy up like so. That should start getting power. Basically, this is just a turret. It's basically just a turret. And any moddy that comes within the area of the turret will take damage. If I go into survival mode here, like so, I think because I'm the person that put this down, I'm not going to take any damage. But if you put it down and you're on a team, nobody else in your team would take damage. And anybody else who came in who was not on your team, or was more specifically on the other team, they would take damage from this aura turret, and they would start taking hits. Pretty cool. So that's what the aura turret does. It has a pretty big range, actually. I think it's kind of like this, maybe. It's not massively far, but it's pretty far. If you put a few of these down around your base, you will be very much protected for quite some time. Now, before we get on to... Actually, this is a good time to talk about this next section here. This here is called the Fusion Matter Reinforcer, and this is a pretty important block within this mod. And I'm going to get into that before I talk about these missiles and the weapons which are in that box over there, because they look ridiculous in frames. But this guy over here kind of links in with concrete. So concrete is one of the building blocks added by this game that is the building block you're going to use to defend yourself. It's the strong block that you're going to use to defend yourself against rockets, against missiles, and stuff like that. So the way this works is if I was to go ahead and put concrete down, concrete, I believe, has 5 tiers. So by default, it's on tier 1. It looks like this. If I was to go ahead and put down a Fusion Matter Reinforcer and then kind of hook it up, I'm going to drag power all the way from over here because I don't want to set up something new. If I was to go ahead and try and power this thing up like so, you will see in a second it's kind of getting power. Let's go ahead and let me grab an overclocker real quick for both of these machines to try and make things go a little bit faster. If I put some in there and if I put one in here, there we go. If we look over here, what you'll see that the concrete's kind of getting darker towards the bottom here, and the whole thing is getting a little bit darker. This is probably more apparent if I put down like another wall outside of its range over here, so you can kind of compare the difference. And actually, before it's not actually started yet, all of these machines do require levers, so if I put this down and turn this on, you'll see it start spinning, and you can see the concrete's getting darker. And I think it might actually be reaching... Yeah, it's reaching over there as well. So that's not really a good comparison. Let me try and, like, maybe... Is this far enough away? I don't quite know what the range is on this. I don't think that's in range. But you can see the concrete is getting darker. And as this machine works, the concrete will get darker and darker, going through its different tiers. So you can see this one down here is a higher tier of concrete than this one up here. And you're going to want to do that because a higher tier of concrete can withstand more explosions. Usually when an explosion hits a tier of concrete, it will take it down a tier. So if it's tier 1, like this one over here, it will just blast right through it. If it's a higher tier, it will not blast right through it. It will kind of just knock it down to the tier below. So you're going to want to have quite a lot of rockets or quite a lot of missiles to take this thing down. This leads me quite nicely into the weapons. Now, there is one weapon I want to start with here, and that is this guy, the rocket launcher. So the rocket launcher, of course, runs on rockets. You do have to craft them. You don't need them in creative mode, and I'm kind of gonna try and do it somewhere like over here for just showing you how it works by default. So the rocket launcher, as you guessed, fires rockets. But what you may notice is that it's not actually doing any damage, and that's because the rocket launcher is actually used to break concrete. Like so. It actually can't be used to destroy terrain. That's what the missiles are for. However, if I come over to this one over here, the one that is a much higher tier, and I fire at this one, you will see it kind of just took it down a tier. If I do it again, took it down another tier. These ones were a bit weak. If I do it again, I destroyed it. I took enough damage to the wall and to the concrete to take it all the way down to its lowest tier. And again, if I do it over here, you can see that one was just out of range, so it didn't get buffed up. This one was strong enough to take a blast, or 2, or 3, and so on and so forth. So that's what this rocket launcher does, and that's what the kind of the concrete is for. Now, the rest of the tools, there are a few more here. There is a pistol, there is a fusion shotgun. I'll kind of go ahead and grab all these and pull them onto my hotbar. Again, you are going to need bullets for these if you are playing in survival mode. These are the bullets here, the fusion ammo. They're made in sets of 16, so not too bad. But these basically just fire. As you may have guessed, you can fire bullets and stuff. If I see this chicken, I can kind of just kill the chicken. That's the pistol. We have the fusion shotgun, which fires kind of like a bunch of shells. You can see it kind of fires a little spread. if you're trying to hit like a few people maybe, or if you were just a bit inaccurate. After the shotgun, we then have the Alt F4, which I'll come back to because the Alt F4 is probably one of my favorite weapons in this game. Then we have the Fusion SMG, which is kind of like an automatic version, almost of the pistol. It kind of just fires semi-fast and in automatic. And then we have the sniper rifle, which is again one of my favorites actually. You can kind of zoom in with this one if you hit left click, which does increase your sensitivity kind of drastically. But you can zoom in once if you'd like, and then you can zoom in again if you want to see really, really far away. You can see my render distance is kind of. Also, don't try and access the menu in this state because it looks like that. But you can kind of see really, really far away, and I'm going to try and get like the most render distance I can out of this thing. And then, well, you can just fire like that. Now, there is a little bit of a drop. Like, I think there's like a noticeable drop on the sniper here. So you don't want to aim a little bit higher than where you're shooting at if you kind of want to hit like something very, very specific, like a person. But that's a sniper rifle. Finally, we have another fusion pistol here, which I think, I'm not quite sure what the difference is between the fusion pistol and the auto fusion pistol. They all fire automatically, so I'm not quite sure if that's like a bug with the normal pistol or what. But finally, we have the Alt F4, which is probably my favorite weapon in this game, because if we just sit down and just fire, we can just fire for days. This thing fires extraordinarily fast. Obviously, that would tear through your bullets if you had them, but also it would tear through enemies, and it could tear through flipping mobs if you so wish. So this thing, in my opinion, is really, really cool. I think it's kind of awesome. Like, it's pretty much like a one-hit kill here. If we go ahead and type in zombies and bring some zombies into the mix, we should be able to kill a lot of these actually fairly easily. Let's take it down to nighttime, and let's like spawn a bunch of these guys in. Apparently, it's not dark enough for them to be not burning, but if we kind of throw all these guys down and then go into survival mode, I'm not worrying. Oh, I don't have permission. Let me /game mode S. If we go ahead and just kind of pull out the Alt F4, I don't have any stuff. No, I don't have any ammo. Let's try that again. Let's go over here. Let's grab ourselves some ammo, which you do need in survival mode. And for the Alt F4, we're going to need a lot of it, because it'll tear through this stuff pretty quickly. But if we go into survival mode, we can just tear these guys apart. Now, for some reason, it seems very bad at shooting those up close, especially this guy. But as you can see from the guys in the distance, it's almost a one-hit kill, killing these guys, which is pretty insane, actually. If you didn't have some good armor on, the person who you went up against with this thing would not stand much of a chance, which I think is pretty cool. I really like that gun. We're going to finish you off, and then we'll go back into some creative mode here. So that's all of the weapons that are involved in this mod. It allows for a little bit of fun shooting up your enemies, a little bit of warfare there. We'll get rid of all of this ammo because we don't really need it. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is supply crates. So if we were to look over here in this chest at the guns, most of these guns are craftable. For example, if we look at the pistol here, we press F, there is a recipe to craft up this pistol. However, some of the weapons, like the Alt F4, are not craftable. I believe the rocket launcher is also not craftable, and maybe the sniper rifle is also not craftable. These are all changeable in the config file, so you can go and make it so that these do have a recipe, but by default, the only way to get these is via these supply crates, and these drop from the sky. You can see I got one dropped in here. They take a very long time to drop. I called this in a while ago. You can call them in manually using a creative item, this guy here, the item.test.name, but that's only for if you want to do it creatively. If you want to do it in a single player, you can't actually call them in. They just fall normally. These, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, will fall in every time there is a full moon in Minecraft at midnight within a 500 block radius of where you spawn. So every time you see a full moon, one of these will drop somewhere in the world. Now, there are three tiers, much like some of the other items and blocks within this mod. There is blue, there is orange, and there is red. Blue being the worst and red being the best. Orange obviously being in the middle. There is a red one coming down, I think, but I'll just plot that down for now. And you can go ahead and you can open these up, and you can see there's a lot of really cool stuff inside. So we have some steel plates, which help you craft stuff, a lot of ammo, some weapons, some cables, some steel, a flipping pyroblast missile. This one has some even better stuff. It has a player healing beacon, some more weapons, some charge seeds, which we'll get to in a second. And then the final tier apparently doesn't work when you cheat it in, and you have to have it drop. So I'm fairly certain if I like left click, I thought that was what it was to cause it to drop, but apparently it's not. So that, just take my word for it that the red tier has the best stuff in it. And let me go ahead and pick all this stuff up. But that's the supply crates. They will drop, like I said, within a 500 block radius of spawn. That might change in the future, but for now I believe it's a 500 block radius, and it spawns every time that it's midnight and there is a full moon. So you look right up and the moon is like completely there and not partially there or anything like that. So that's the supply crates. And then the final bit of this mod that I would like to talk about is, of course, missiles. But before I do that, I want to talk about charged seeds, because these are also kind of cool. For now, if you just put these down, they look like grass, but if you were to walk over them, and I'm pretty low on health here, they will explode. And they also do random amounts of damage. So some of them will do a little bit of damage, some of them will do a lot of damage. Right now, I believe they attack anybody, but I believe it's be planned to be implemented that they will not attack your own team. So your own team can kind of just walk through the grass and won't get hit. But I think, oh gosh, look at all this stuff. But that's another really cool little feature of the mod. There's some charged grass there, so you got your base. You can kind of have some of this grass just outside, or even outside your enemy's base. And they'll have to be really careful walking through grass so as not to explode. But that's the charged grass. And then finally, the last bit of this mod that I want to talk about is, of course, missiles. So I blew all this stuff up over here, but there were a few tiers of missiles. I can kind of show you all of these from within the tab over here. So all of the missiles, I believe, apart from this first one, have 3 tiers. So the first one is the Dudley missile. This is the missile that basically does absolutely nothing. And the reason why it does absolutely nothing is because there are a lot of things within the game that allow people to stop missiles. For example, there is an EMP tower over here, and when charged, the EMP tower will destroy any incoming missile within a 10 by 10 area. So the first missile you want to send out might well be a Dudley missile that does nothing. It just kind of goes in, turns off the EMP tower, kind of uses up its charge, so that the next missile you send in doesn't get destroyed. You know what I'm saying? The next tier is EMP, which kind of does a similar thing, but if you send these in, they will drain power of items nearby. So you could send one of these in to begin with to kind of turn off their turrets. You know, if they had an aura turret that was going to attack you, you were planning an attack, you could throw in an EMP missile to turn off all of their electronics. You could turn off their healing stations. You could turn off this guy in particular, the matter reinforcer, because then the next tier up is, we'll go straight to breaching missiles, and breaching missiles, much like rockets, are very good at tearing through concrete. So if you fire a breaching missile at some concrete, you might want to follow it up with an EMP so that it turns off their nearby fusion matter reinforcer, because otherwise what's going to happen is you're going to hit it with a breaching missile, the concrete's going to go down a tier, and then it's going to start healing back up because they still have the fusion matter reinforcer turned on. So that might be a good idea. Finally, there is the velocity, second to finally, there is the velocity missile. This is the one that destroys terrain. You can just fire this anywhere you'd like, and I'm going to show you some of these in a second here. Actually, let's go ahead and take a velocity tier 3 missile. You can take these, and these ones will just destroy Earth. They do need power to the missile launcher. You can see that one is slowly getting some energy. Let me turn this thing off. We don't really need that just yet. That should be getting a bit more power now. And we can throw that in there, and then when you want to tell it where to go, you need one of these guys over here, the location linker, and simply right-click where you want it to go. I believe you shift right-click where you want it to go. And then you right-click on the missile launcher, or shift right click on the missile launcher, kind of similar to the way we set up the wireless power transfer last episode. And then if we were to go ahead and do something like this, grab ourselves a lever, flick this thing on. I think it needs 400 power to send a missile, maybe more. I think it's 1,000. You can see it'll start flaring. And then, yeah, it's about 1,000 it needs to go. And then it'll start firing up into the air. And then after a few seconds, it'll start coming back down. And it should hit exactly where we put it to hit. And there we go. It'll lift up all of the blocks. And then we'll just disappear. So you've just, destroyed a very large section of base. That is the tier 3, of course. There's tier 2 and tier 1, which do slightly smaller areas of ground. But that's what the velocity missile does. The breaching one does a similar thing, but works especially well on concrete. The EMP missile does exactly the same thing, but it will drain power. And then, of course, you have the Dudley missile, which does nothing. And then finally, one of the more fun missiles in the game here is the Pyroblast missile, which is a bit of a fun one. If we throw that into there, we do almost have 1,000. And again, because I left the lever on there, it's just going to auto fire. And this one, you'll see in a second, if we fire that again, it's going to go up. And then after a few seconds, it will come back down over here. And this one spawns blazes. That's all it does. The Pyroblast missile spawns blazes, which could be pretty good for wreaking havoc on some enemies, you know, especially if it's somewhat early on. They don't have much in the way of armor or tools or anything like that. If it's later on, it might actually be a help to them because they'd have to go to the nether to get blazes. But in the early game especially, that could be pretty dangerous. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the missile silo, which is probably one of the coolest parts of this. If we go ahead and type in missile and then grab this missile silo over here, the silo core, we need to combine that up with some blocks of steel, much like we did with the the reactors that we made at the end of last episode. And it is simply a 3x5 kind of tower like this. So that's 2, and then we'll go 3, 4, 5, fill all this in. And then if we finish this up, we put the missile silo core, I believe, right there. That will then form a multi-block that looks like this. And then if we look inside, this guy's got space for a ton of missiles. And if we were to go ahead and, let's say, grab, I don't know, just like a bunch of tier 3 velocity missiles like this, and go ahead and put these into there. I don't know if you can put 4 in each block. I don't know how that works, but apparently it looks like it does. So let's just take like a ton of these. We do need to make sure this thing stays up to date with its power usage, though, because this thing does require quite a bit of power. We'll throw that all in there. You can set a delay between sending different missiles. Let me quickly grab some solar panels and throw all those down to give this thing a little bit of power. So I've gone ahead and filled this up with quite a bit of power. We're almost at about 15,000 energy right now. And basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this to spray mode, which basically means when we go ahead and link it to, say, let's go with like this right here, which is right-click here, and then shift-right-click on this guy. Like that. That's now going to use this as a central point, but because we've set it to spray, it's going to send them in like random areas around that point. This is really good if they've got like a base that you want to take out the entirety of, and not just one central point. Because if you didn't have spray mode enabled, you would hit one point over and over and over again. If you do have spray mode enabled, you're going to hit like all of their base. And now again, if I go ahead and grab myself a lever, and this thing, I believe, still uses 1,000 energy per missile, so we're going to be able to send, I think, about 25 missiles here. I've got 0 delay, so that should go literally instantly. And we can just fire. You can see it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's just going to keep sending them as long as it has enough energy and enough missiles ready to go. And you can see these are all going to come down in different areas around the point where I set it to go. And they're just going to wreak some havoc on this area. So you can set up a missile silo. You can like store it up with power, leave it there for a while until it's ready to just send all of those missiles. You can see it's sending the second set of 4. My goodness, look at all this. Look at all those missiles going in the air. Jeez. That is going to cause some serious damage to whoever you send those to. You can also do the same thing with the Pyro Blaze ones to send blazes to everybody. A couple of EMPs. You can mix and match which ones you throw in there. You can start off with like a bombardment of the breaching missiles, follow it up with some EMPs, follow it up with some Pyros, and just completely destroy them. It's up to you, but with that, guys, that is the end of this mod spotlight. This thing is causing a little bit of lag right now because it's destroying so much at once. I find so many missiles. But with that, guys, I'm going to call it there for this mod spotlight. Again, I'll put a link down below if you would like to play this mod. It's a really cool mod in my opinion, but again, thanks for watching. If you did enjoy the video, be sure to like it. It really does help out a lot, and I will see you guys next time.